Welcome to the RMA Annual Statement Studies Valuation Edition product demo. When the program starts, you'll see the selection dialog. This allows you to select the year of data that you want to display. If you've been buying RMA Valuation Edition for more than 1 year, or you've bought previous historic years, you'll see all those years under Select Data. For the NAICS code, you can select any of the 766 codes that are available. In this case, we've selected Offices of Certified Public Accountants. Under Step 3, you'll notice there's a Select Data region. By default, it's national, but you can pick any one of the other regions. You can also sort the data by assets, sales, or historical, just the way you will find it in the RMA book. When the data is displayed, you'll notice there's a number of tabs across the top. The first one's the General Industry Snapshot. It shows you the data source, the NAICS division, title, code, etc. If you'll scroll down, you'll see some general annual data about the industry, and at the bottom you'll see Industry Compound Annual Growth. The next tab is the Income Statement. This shows income statements in dollars. This is not normally shown in the RMA book. Income statement percentages is what you're used to seeing in the book. This is exactly what you'll see in the RMA book for this industry in this year in this slice of data. The next tab is the balance sheet. It shows you the balance sheet in dollars. If you click on balance sheet percentages, you'll see the common size balance sheet, just like you'll see in the book. You'll notice the categories across the top are exactly the same categories that RMA has for assets and sales. The last tab is ratios. As you scroll down, you'll see the RMA ratios, separated by high, medium, and low. You'll notice these are the exact same number of ratios you're used to seeing in the RMA book. Now let's take a look at the decile data. Select the Decile button under Select Workbooks, and you'll see the Decile tab. The Decile tab breaks the data out for one specific slice of data, in this case $0 to $1 million, and you can change the slice by selecting the Data Range dropdown. You'll notice every slice of data in RMA is available here. Select the slice you want to see, and the numbers that reflect that will be displayed. Now let's take a look. You can see the entire curve from the 10th percentile all the way to the 90th. If we scroll over to the right, you'll see the 90th percentile as well as the standard deviation. You'll notice some of the data here looks very different than the data you'll see in the book, which has averages. For example, let's take a look at operating profit. If you looked up in the book this SIC code for the $3 to $5 million range, you'd see the operating profit was 11.1%. But if we look at the 50th percentile of the decile data, you'll see it's 5.6%. This is hugely different and will have a gigantic impact on how you interpret your subject company's comparison to RMA. Why can this be so different than the RMA averages? Well, because the RMA in common size statements reports averages. When you're looking at the entire distribution curve, the 50th percentile, or the median, is not an average, but the middle number. The average has outliers in it. In this case, there's some pretty substantial outliers that are pulling the average way away from the median. In the regular RMA data, you would never see this. Some of these differences are so substantial, it will completely change the way you look at your company in comparison to the RMA data. With RMA Valuation Edition, you get the entire distribution curve. So instead of just seeing the average or the median, which is at the top of the curve, you get to see the entire curve. This also allows you to rank your subject company against RMA data, which is much more precise and much easier to explain. Let's take a look at a specific example. Let's say you want to benchmark profit before taxes. The standard method is you calculate your company's profit before taxes. In this example, it's 20%. And you look up the RMA average for your SIC code and your asset category. In this case, let's say it's 15%. You calculate that your company is 33% above the RMA norm. Well, what does that exactly tell you? Unless you understand the shape of the curve and the standard deviations, it's hard to make a quantitative analysis based on this. If we go to a ranking, the company's number is still 20%. But since we have the entire distribution curve, you can calculate, or you can let the RMA program calculate for you, the ranking. In this case, the ranking is at the 80th percentile. It's much more precise than saying it's 33% above the RMA norm. It's also much easier to explain. The 80th percentile means 79% of the companies that responded to the RMA survey had a profit before taxes number that was less than 20%. One of the things that the Valuation Edition will also allow you to do is look at multi-year data. If you want to take a look at trends, you can select multi-year data, select the asset or sales category that you want, and there's a number of options you can select too: starting year, number of years, etc. But if we scroll down, now we'll notice that we're actually looking at the number of years that you've selected. In this case, 2009, 8, 7, going all the way back to 2000. So if you want to take a look at income statement percentages and scroll down, you can see all those percentages. It's like opening 10 years of the RMA book at one time. This can be very useful. You can export the RMA data in the program either to a workbook or to a company analysis workbook. The workbook just takes all the data that you're seeing and exports it to Excel. The company analysis workbook takes the data that you're seeing and exports it to a worksheet that's pre-populated that allows you to input a subject company data and automatically perform an RMA comparison as well as a ranking report. Let's see how this works. When the analysis workbook opens, you'll see a series of tabs at the bottom. You walk through the analysis workbook by just clicking on the tabs. The first tab is subject data. Just input the data for your subject company. The next tab is the balance sheet. The balance sheet is where you input all of the balance sheets for up to 5 years for your subject company. If you only want to input 1 year of data, that's fine. Just leave the other years blank. Let's take a look at the income statement. The income statement's the same. You can input up to 5 years, but if you only want to do the current year, just input that one. Now let's take a look at the common size balance sheet year to year. You'll notice the first column is the subject company, raw data. The next column is subject company percents, RMA percents. And then here's the real powerful part of this. You get rankings. So let's take a look. Cash and equivalents is the 54th p-tile. What does that mean? On the RMA distribution curve, this company's cash and equivalents of 7.6% is at the 54th percentile. And this is part of the real powerful features of this analysis workbook. It ranks every item of your subject company against RMA data. You input the data is automatically downloaded, compared, and ranked against RMA. And once again, ranking is much more precise than just seeing how far you are away from the average or the median. You also notice if you scroll over to the right, you get comparisons for every year you input. One of the nice features of RMA, if you have multiple years of data, is you can compare multiple years of RMA data to multiple years of your subject company. Let's take a look at some of the other analysis here. Here's common size, balance sheet, and industry trends. You're taking a look at RMA over multiple years. And then there's a number of graphs. Industry to working capital. Here's common size balance sheet client trend. This is what the subject company is trending. Here's some more graphs. Here's common size income statement year to year with a ranking. And let's just walk through the rest of these. There's dozens of tabs and dozens of analysis and charts. As you can see, for just inputting some data with this for a subject company, you end up with a tremendous amount of analysis with very little work. This is the power of the analysis workbook in RMA Valuation Edition. One of the new features of the RMA Valuation Edition is the dashboard. It's a great tool to help you visually benchmark a subject company against RMA data very quickly. Let's take a look and see how this works. The first thing you do is select RMA data. You select the year, whether you want national or regional data, whether you want the data sorted by assets or sales, and the range. And then you pick the NAICS code from RMA that you want to benchmark against. The next step in the process is to enter some data. You can enter one or more pieces of data about a subject company. You can also customize the data types. You can select the gauge, select the drop-down list, and select what data you want to use. You can even select custom types. This is to benchmark or show a gauge for data that doesn't exist in RMA. The last step is to show the gauges. These are visual representations of the rankings of each one of the pieces of data you input. It makes it very easy to see how the company ranks against RMA norms. It's also visual. In other words, you get a red light, green light, yellow light approach. Are you doing at, above, or below industry norms? This is a great way to get a quick benchmark. It's also a great way to help convey this information to others. For example, you can export this to Word and put it in your valuation report. Remember that having all that extra data in RMA allows us to do the rankings. And it's the only product in the market that allows you to do rankings of financial statement comparisons. So let's summarize. You have to compare a subject company's financials to industry norms for evaluation. And the regions and decile data make RMA Valuation Edition the best choice for this. RMA data is the most recent, and it's not forecasted in any way. And there are built-in tools to help you. And the data automatically downloads with one mouse click into Express Business Valuation, ValuSource Pro, and BVM Pro.